You're about to discover the best things and the worst things about staying loyal to a cruise line. I'm Gary Bembridge. This is another of my cruise tips for travelers. I want to take a look at loyalty programs with cruise lines and look at the pros and the cons of staying loyal to one particular cruise line. Well, what is a cruise line loyalty program? They're free to join. You normally get signed up when you go on your very first cruise on a cruise line. Often you need that to be able to get in to manage your cruise booking, for example. You then earn points based on the number of cruises you do. Now, most cruise lines, it's based on the number of nights you do. So most of the different tiers that you hit and move up depend on the number of nights. The great thing about that is they, not like many loyalty programs say on airlines, they don't wipe the nights free and you have to reset every year. So basically your nights keep building up. So as you get to a new tier, you keep at that tier and you keep working your way up the tiers. That then enables you to redeem those various points for either free benefits, or at certain tier levels, it unlocks a whole range of benefits. So all of the cruise lines have loyalty programs. I thought I might just mention 5 of them for the 5 biggest based on the number of passengers cruising on them. So Carnival Cruise Line, for example, their loyalty program is called the VIFP, the Very Important Fun Person. The Crown and Anchor Society is Royal Caribbean's loyalty program. Norwegian Cruise has the Latitudes Rewards program. MSC has the MSC Voyagers Club, and Princess, which is the 5th biggest cruise line in terms of number of passengers in the world, they have the Captain's Circle. So what are the worst things about staying loyal to one particular line? Before we look at the upsides, I thought it was worth talking a little bit about some of the downsides. There's 2 kind of worst sides, or 2 key watch-outs. The first of those is that for most cruise lines, as you earn status and tier points on one cruise line, it's strictly for that cruise line only. Unlike airline loyalty programs, where airlines tend to be part of bigger groups. So you have, for example, Oneworld, you have Star Alliance, you have SkyTeam. So groups of airlines belong to those. And as you build up status with those, you can use that status on other airlines, and you can often move the points between them. This is not necessarily the case on cruises. For example, Carnival Group, I have very high status on Cunard, so I have platinum status, kind of, which I think is the top status. But if I go on other Carnival Corporation brands, so like Carnival, Seabourn, Holland America, Costa, AIDA, for each individual program have to build up status. The same, I think, is also true of Norwegian Cruise Lines. You're either part of the Norwegian loyalty program, or you're part of Oceania loyalty program, or you're part of Region 7C loyalty program. The key difference for those is as follows. So if you actually cruise with Royal Caribbean Group, you find that your status moves between their different brands. So if you cruise Royal Caribbean and you build up status on their Crown and Anchor Society, you'll find if you go, for example, on Celebrity, or you go on Azamara, you'll find that your status actually keeps building and adding, and your status applies across the different cruise lines. So that's a little bit more similar to the airline situation. The other great thing to understand is with MSC Cruises, they do a status match. So if before you go on a cruise, you are perhaps very high status like I am, say on Cunard, you're very high status on Royal Caribbean, they will match that status if you apply in advance. So you then unlock all the benefits on MSC. So as you look to choose who you're going to be loyal to, you want to bear in mind, do you want to be loyal to one particular cruise line where you can't transfer that loyalty? Or do you want to be loyal to one cruise line that's part of a group that will let you move stuff around? That is the kind of the worst side of being on a loyalty club, particularly if you cruise lots of different cruise lines like I do. You kind of don't have status on many of them because you're chopping and changing so often and you can't transfer that across. The other kind of worst thing or risk and watch out is you should never let status get in the way of a great deal. So you shouldn't only look at that cruise line, because you might find you get great other experiences, or you get phenomenal deals to cruise the Caribbean, cruise the Mediterranean, go to Alaska on another cruise line. Don't just turn it down because of the perks that you might get, because in practice, as we'll see in a little while, whilst there's some great perks, they're not necessarily so magnificent that it should stop you chasing a great deal. So those are probably the 2 worst things about cruise loyalty programs. So what are the 6 best things about staying loyal to a cruise line and building up status? So the best thing of all is you get discounts, upgrades, and potentially even free cruises by staying loyal. Now, the different perks differ by cruise line, so you need to check into the detail. So for example, on Celebrity, you can often get cabin upgrades. You can get discounts on Voyagers on pretty much all lines. Silver Sea, as you build up, you can get a free sailing. You can get free specialty dining on MSC. You can get discounts on future sailings with most cruise lines, especially Seabourn, Fred Olsen. You can get saving on shore excursions on Fred Olsen. You can get fares at special rates for third and fourth passengers in Holland America. So a whole mishmash of discounts, upgrades, and benefits that you can get through status. The second big plus of staying loyal is services and amenities are often bundled in. So you'll find all sorts of things will come as you hit the different status levels. So you'll get things like photos, internet access, you might get alternative dining included, you might get a champagne breakfast. So all the different lines offer different benefits. So for example, on Cunard, you'll get things like Wi-Fi, which builds up, you'll get some free laundry services, and all sorts of different little features are built in as you build up, including things like special dining. So again, on Cunard, as you hit different stages, you get special dining for free. The third perk, which I think is a really great one, is you get faster embarkation and disembarkation. This is particularly great if you're on a cruise line which is really big. So you don't have to be necessarily traveling in a suite. So obviously if you travel in a suite, you get faster embarkation. But as you go up the priority, you get to get on the ship and get off the ship quicker. So that's a real big plus. And you'll find often there's little special lounges for different card holder levels where you can have teas and coffees and refreshments before you go. You might be sitting in a nicer lounge and different facilities before you get off. So definitely faster embarkation and disembarkation, I think, is a real big plus because it just makes the whole cruising experience much smoother. The fourth big plus, and this appeals to a lot of people, is they have different events, they have different parties and different activities available for people as they go up tiers. Most of the cruise lines will have some sort of cocktail party or captain's or officers party for members of their different loyalty programs, and sometimes depending on your level they might even have smaller, much more intimate and special ones. Often you'll find if you've got status you'll get invited or the chance to do some of the things like behind the scene tours or go on the bridge, which is increasingly difficult to do, and they offer those often first to people who have status. You'll also find often people with status are more likely to get invited to the captain's table or to be hosted by officers and member of the crew if that is something that the cruise line does. So activities, parties and events is a real big plus and often bundled in. The fifth big plus is often the cruise line will give you little gifts and various bits and pieces as you build up status. So it could be as simple as, for example, again using the Cunard example, you get different little pins to indicate your level of status. Some of the cruise lines will give you luggage tags. Some of the cruise lines will give you special bags which you can use to go off on excursions, nice little canvas bags. And so different little gifts are bundled, and again it differs a lot by cruise line. The other big plus is as you build up status, you'll also often be given access to concierge services. So often that's only available for people traveling in suites, but you'll often find they will have special services available for people with status, and it's normally hosted by the person who manages the actual club on board. So you can go to them and they'll help sort out excursions or dining or bookings. They'll give lots of tips and advice. If you've got any problems, they'll help solve it. So you actually have somebody other than just guest services or your cabin steward you can go to help sort out problems. And that can be a real big plus. Obviously, most cruise lines will have some sort of service like that for suite members, but you'll find pretty much on every single cruise, there'll be one person allocated who looks after people who are members of the loyalty program, and particularly people with status. And they're often the ones that will organize the special treats and bits and pieces. So it's always good to build a relationship with them because they can often organize lots of bits and pieces that could be added to improve your cruise experience, whether that's an extra bottle of wine, some champagne, some chocolate covered strawberries, whatever that may be. Those, in my view, are the best things and the worst things about staying loyal to one cruise line. Bear in mind, no matter how loyal you are, don't let it get in the way of constantly looking for new experiences, new destinations, and of course, make sure you don't lose out on great deals because you're sticking loyal to just one cruise line. In my view, there's great perks, there's great benefits. However, they don't always outweigh the savings you could make by finding a better deal on another cruise line. And also, you might get a different experience. I have many more tips and advice videos, so why don't you watch another one of those right now?